Hi everyone, I'm super excited to be here today. My name is Robert Gephardt, and today I'm going to be talking to you about AI. However, I'm not going to be talking about all the mistakes that it makes in translation or how it's out to get your jobs or stuff like that. Rather, I'm going to show you some simple ways in which ChatGPT specifically, but others like it, can really help you and can simplify your life. I'm gonna guess that as translators, and especially for you freelance translators, you spend way too much time on things like sales, on marketing, on applying for jobs, on trying to get the attention of agencies and of end clients, etc., etc. And all of this means you spend less time translating, which is what you should be doing, presumably, because that's what you get paid for. So anyway, hopefully this session will show you how you can actually use something like ChatGPT to simplify your life and make this process quicker, more intuitive, so you can waste less time on it and actually spend time on the things that are important for you. And I figured the best way to go ahead with this, rather than try to explain it to you verbally, is to actually just show you. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is go to the ChatGPT website. I'm going to be using the free version of ChatGPT and not ChatGPT 4 for the simple reason that I want this to be applicable to as many of you as possible. I'm assuming that many of you haven't paid for it, but you all have access to the free version of ChatGPT. There may be some exceptions depending on what country you're in, so you have to inform yourself about that. But by and large, most of you should have access to this, and you can just access the website. I think you have to give your email address and then you're in. Now, right off the bat, many of you might be thinking about all the problems and issues that ChatGPT has, especially as regards translation, but even for other things. And it's true. You should not rely on ChatGPT to come up with facts. You should not ask it any questions that are fact-based, that require fact-based answers, because it will probably mess them up. So when you're asking it to write a cover letter or an introductory letter for you, you can't just assume that it knows anything about you or anything about the job. And so you have to feed it that information. So a lot of you might think, well, okay, then if I have to let it know that I went to this and that school and I studied this and that, and then this is all my experience and I'm available for whatever this. I mean, at that point, I might as well just write my own cover letter, because it's going to take more time to feed it all the information rather than just do it myself. And that's true, but luckily you don't have to do all that. So let me show you how simple it is. I think the best way to do this is to do it with some practice rather than theory. So I'm going to do this using my own information. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my resume and just copy the whole thing, and here I'm going to write a cover letter based on this resume. There you go, and it wrote out the whole thing for me. As you can see, it has a bunch of information. You don't have to include it if you don't want to, or you can if you want to. I'm writing to express my strong interest in the Italian to English translator position at whatever, advertised on where you found the job posting, etc., etc. And it includes a bunch of information. But let's say I want to specify, because you can build off your answers on ChatGPT, so let's do that right now. Let's say I want to specify that it's for a freelance financial translation position. Financial translation job, I should say, not position. And there you go. As you can see, it concentrates a lot more on my financial background, finance and fiscal policy. I've gained extensive experience in translating financial documents, including annual reports, financial statements, investment analyses, etc. Now you can build off this in many ways. Needless to say, you can then decide to do the same thing for legal translations, or you can tell it that you want it to sound more professional or to concentrate more on this and less on that. And so you can play around with it however you see fit. I'm not going to do too much of that. But let's say you want to simplify this process even more. And let's say there's a job on ProZ.com, you're applying to that job on ProZ.com, and you want ChatGPT to help you with that. So let's do that. So we're going to take this job. This is a job that I posted, and I'm using this one just because I don't have permission to use anyone else's. And I'm just going to copy the job And then I'm gonna write for this job posting. And I'm just gonna paste everything here and let's see what happens. I'm writing a response to your job posting dated 27th October 2018 for the Italian to English translation of quality assurance, etc., etc. And this seems like a pretty decent cover letter or introductory letter. It does seem a bit long, so let's see if we can make it a bit shorter. So here, this is a bit shorter. Now at this point, let me show you a couple other things you can do. If you're not happy with the answer that it gave you, you can try to regenerate an answer just by clicking here. And you still have access to the previous answer by clicking on this. In fact, now that I read through it, I see something else is missing, so let's see if I can include this. And here it adds pricing information as well. Now, some of you at this point might be thinking, okay, this is cheating. This isn't writing a real cover letter and it shouldn't be done this way. And I mean, you don't have to do it this way if you don't want to. Absolutely not. I just wanted to show you that the option exists. On the other hand, some of you might be thinking, well, great, I'm never going to write a cover letter again. I'm just going to copy and paste everything from the job posting to my resume into ChatGPT and let it handle everything. This is a mistake as well. You should read everything that's written here in the job posting to make sure you're suitable for it. And there's specific reasons why I say this. You might have noticed here, it says, please write Italian to English QA in your subject line. And ChatGPT did not do that. So you do need to pay attention and make sure that ChatGPT followed all the instructions. As I mentioned, it can get some of the facts wrong, even when you fed it the facts just then and there. Now, another thing I noticed here, it says, I'm also open to splitting the project to meet your deadline. That doesn't really mean anything. So you do want to read through it and make sure that it makes sense and that it follows the instructions. And by the way, this does not include my ProZ.com profile. If I'm emailing them, I might want to include a link to that. So think of it more as just a help and a way to simplify the process so you can spend less time writing cover letters and these applications and more time actually performing translations. And that's pretty much it. I think you get the idea more or less as to how it works. A couple other things I would mention is that you can add different types of prompts. Prompts that I've played around with, that I've tried, are things like use a more conversational tone, or use a more persuasive tone, or write a more persuasive cover letter. Or else you can try something like highlight my enthusiasm for the job, or explain why I'm the best fit for the job, or even show how my abilities align with the requirements for the job, something like that. Feel free to mess around with it and see what works best for you. Now, of course, there are other things you can do, like you can decide to just work on sections. You could do something like rewrite the introductory paragraph, or add a call to action at the end, etc., etc. Now, in case you're wondering, yes, you can do all of this with Google Bard or one of the other ones as well. I just stuck solely to ChatGPT because I didn't want to make it too repetitive. If you do use one of the other AI programs, it works pretty much the same way. The results are going to vary, but they'll vary no matter what. So feel free to experiment around as much as you want. In my experience, as long as you choose one and stick to it, then you can just start concentrating on that and get more familiar with that. And you'll get more out of that than trying to experiment with a bunch of different programs. Now, I know some of you are already thinking about this, so I do want to mention you can do it the other way around. What do I mean by this? You can decide to plug a cover letter in and ask it to give you a resume based on that cover letter. And I have tried this. I'm not going to do this for this presentation or anything for various reasons. First of all, it's a lot more messy. A cover letter usually doesn't include all the information you need for a resume. Also, the resume you need all the layout and stuff like that, which you need to work on. So you're not going to save any time no matter what. Feel free to do it. It might come up with different ways of articulating your experience, or it might pinpoint different aspects that you can highlight of your experience, your professional experience that maybe you didn't think of. So feel free to do that as an experiment just to see what pops up. But I wouldn't rely on that to make a resume because, at least from my experience, it's a mess. So I guess at this point, I have two questions for you. First of all, if this succeeds in freeing up your time in writing cover letters and introductory letters every time you're applying for a job, what will now become your biggest time waster? The thing you're going to spend most time on that you wish you didn't have to? And the second question is, does anything else come to mind that you could use ChatGPT for or AI for? I'm not saying necessarily there's any intersection between those two questions, but I'm just wondering about both of them. So feel free to let me know. Anyway, hopefully you found this useful, and I hope that at least some of you can use this in order to make your life easier so you can spend more time actually translating than writing up cover letters and introductory letters every time you apply for jobs. Thank you once again, and take care.